House of EdTech, episode 66.
Hi, this is Angela Watson from the cornerstoneforteachers.com and Angela Watson's Truth for Teachers podcast. And you're listening to the House of EdTech with Chris Nesi.
Support for this episode of the House of EdTech comes from summerpd.com. Check out summerpd.com, where you can enroll in their 10-week at-your-own-pace program that explores educational technologies like Google Classroom and apps, formative assessments, flipped classroom methods, and many more. Summer is not over. You can still take advantage of their summer bundle and get all 10 courses for $25 using the promo code House of EdTech. By purchasing, you gain access to the courses for professional development on your schedule. Go to summerpd.com and sign up today. Welcome to the House of EdTech podcast. I am your host, Christopher Nesi, and the House of EdTech explores how technology is changing the way teachers teach and the impact that technology is having in education. My objectives include discussing technology that is changing our classrooms and schools and sharing tools and tips that you can hear about today and use tomorrow. I talk to teachers, leaders, and creators just like you and have them share their stories. The purpose? Whether you use it or not, technology is changing the way we teach and how our students learn. Oh, the music is back, and so am I. It is great to be back here in the new and improved House of EdTech studio, aka the office I share with my wife, Kate Nesi. The construction is over. The project is done. I am sitting here at my brand new DIY desk in the room that a few short weeks ago was basically a real mess. No carpeting, no real floor, bad sheetrocking, very ugly wood paneling. I took it down to the studs. If you've been following my adventures on Twitter, took it down to the studs, redid the electrical, redid some of the studs, redid the insulation, and put up new drywall, ceilings, walls, added an overhead ceiling fan and light fixture that was not in this room and space before. Did the built-in desk that spans about 120 inches across the room as I talk with my hands, and you don't see any of this obviously, but I'm very proud of this desk that I constructed that is nice and smooth and almost feels like ice right on top of it. It is, I'm just really excited to be recording an episode here in the new studio. There will be pictures in the show notes for this episode, which are going to be at chrisnesi.com/66, and that's the number 66 for episode 66. So there's going to be a little bit of a photo spread of the office and studio in the show notes, but I am very excited. So I'm here, got the dual monitors, got the mic set up. Everything is great. The soundboard is running awesome. So I'm just very excited. Thank you for coming on this adventure with me. And if this is your first episode, you don't really know what I'm talking about. The last two episodes, no sound effects, recorded in my garage, aka the auxiliary or alternate House of EdTech studio. And hopefully I will never have to record in my garage again. So bye-bye to the garage. Well, the garage isn't going anywhere. But anyway, let's get into why you're here. And that's because this is the House of EdTech. You came here to learn. It's the middle of summer as I record this. Let's get right to it. What are we going to have in this episode? I almost feel like a used car dealer. And I've got great deals to give away. So here we go. I have 2 EdTech thoughts to share with you today. I have 2 EdTech recommendations, but only 1 House of EdTech VIP. I have some feedback. Let's go to the House of EdTech answering machine, where we have a question from Kerry Cicero.
You have 1 new message.
But I just wanted to know your thoughts on PLCs, if you guys do them, and what your guys' roles and what you guys have to do. Because a lot of the time, too, it's very monotonous, and it just does not feel like we're getting much done. Like I said, it could be a different aspect because we also didn't switch classes this year as well. Now, I think, it'd work a lot better if we did, but just our schedules couldn't do that for us. But yeah, I just want to know your thoughts. And once again, I really enjoy the show. It's nice to have in the summer, especially. Just being a newer teacher, I really enjoy it. So once again, I really appreciate what you do. And down the road, I'd love to come down to a convention at some point and possibly get to meet you. And like I said, it's really cool that there's teachers that care that much about their kids. And I mean, that's what you do to come into a teaching job, is you're doing it for the class, and you're doing it for your kids, and you're doing it for the kids you're going to have and the kids that you had before. And yeah, so once again, you're doing a great job, and I think you deserve everything that you get. So appreciate it. So thank you very much.
Kerry, thank you first and foremost for sending in some audio feedback. Kerry and I have been corresponding via Voxer since maybe the beginning of June, the middle of June. Kerry will correct me if I'm wrong, and that's okay, because I've been known to be wrong. But thank you for the feedback. Thank you for the kind words. And I do hope that you get down, or we get to be in the same place at the same time, because I love to meet people who listen to the show. And I'm a people person, so I just like to meet and talk to people in general. It's kind of one of the reasons I started a podcast. But to get to your question, Kerry, my thoughts on PLCs. Part of what you said, and for everybody else, this little snippet of audio was from a much longer Vox, but I just wanted to pull out Kerry's question to share with you here on the podcast. He hit on something very important, that, you know, if it was done differently, if it's done right, and I think more valuable when it's done right are my words. So the PLCs that happen in schools are oftentimes, and raise your hand, not if you're driving, raise your hand if you agree with me, a lot of times it's a waste of time. Teachers don't take it seriously, or the degree of seriousness that they take it to really is they treat it as another prep. They're grading. They may be distracted. If you're able to get your whole grade level team or a department together at the same time outside of department meetings or grade level meetings that are after school or before school. But if this is during the school day time, I know, and I've been in this position, you could think of a million other things to do other than talking pedagogy and, you know, hammering out really important things. So breaking into the House of EdTech, as I was answering your question, Kerry, the new studio is up and running, and my wife, Caitlin Nessie, has stormed the studio as she sits across from me in the new setup.
I know. I love it.
Isn't it beautiful?
Yeah. It's very nice. It feels like styrofoam.
And now here, just before you came in, I said it feels like ice.
No, it's very smooth. It feels different than it looks. You feel like you're going to feel some grainy wood, and it just feels like glass. There's nothing there.
I'm very excited. If I had my druthers, I would have put one more coat of polyurethane on this thing.
Yeah, but I just had to get back to work.
Yes, the photo editing doesn't stop here for Kate Nessie Photography.
And a lot of the freelance writing for Frugal Momster.
That's right. And well, hold on. I'll let you talk more about that, but actually, can I get your thoughts on what I was talking about before you bombarded the studio?
Hey, it's my office too.
That's true. But you sat down and you were very excited to put on the headphones and the microphone.
Yeah, I just kind of came in. You were recording, and I thought I'd join in.
Okay, so here's what I was monologuing about. Kerry Cicero, he's an educator from out in Montana, sent in a question. He wanted to know my thoughts on PLCs in school. So now you're a high school librarian. Have you had any experience with the PLC meetings in schools?
Yeah, I've been a part of several PLCs depending on the district I've worked in, and I find them very valuable depending on how the meeting is run. It should be different than a department type meeting and, you know, curriculum and stuff. You know, I focus on the professional learning about things you can do outside of the standard. Here's the curriculum, here's a lesson, here's that type of work. So as a librarian, I found them very valuable. Sometimes it's the only time I get to meet with other librarians in my district. As a high school librarian, sometimes you can feel very isolated depending on where I've worked, and connection and trying to get to other buildings or have people come to your building and do vertical articulation. So I have found them to be very valuable in my situation, in my profession. And even coming from the public library, where I spent a lot of time meeting with other librarians, talking about various things that we could do to advocate, or programs, or teaching, or things like that. So I think PLCs are great as long as they're utilized for actual learning. The learning portion, somebody is there to lead, teach each other, share ideas. As long as it doesn't become kind of a complaining fest or a paperwork fest, as long as it's actually like, hey, we're here to learn something together, I find them to be very useful.
And I can't agree with you more. And I've experienced where it's broken down, where it becomes almost like an extra prep or more free time if teachers decide, I'm not going to show up to it. So I think you make a good point in saying there needs to be some sort of facilitation.
Yeah, as long as the people are invested. A lot of people that I've ever worked with, even when I've been part of PLCs with teachers in different departments and different groups and technology PLCs, most people come, especially teachers, they're willing to learn, they're interested in something, but they don't want their time wasted. They have a lot of time with lesson plans, they have a lot of time with testing, they have a lot of time with everything that they have to get in the day. So they don't want to go spend 30 minutes with you or anyone else and just listen to complaints or waste their time, because it's like they could sit there and grade, or they could have gotten something done, or they could have handled a parent issue or a student concern, or anything else that they had to get done in the building. So for me, my biggest thing when I've had meetings with anybody, I always try to bring it back to the core value, back to whatever we're talking about or whatever we want to go for or grow with, and make it a really useful time. I think that's why a lot of people, when I've been involved in PLCs or been a part of them or have been the facilitator of them, people have appreciated it, or they've come back to me and said, hey, this has been pretty great, because I want you to learn and be excited about whatever we're talking about. I've done PLCs where we've gone back to Twitter. That was like 6-7 years ago, like almost when Twitter started. And I was like, what is this thing? Now with Google Apps and a variety of things. So my biggest thing is not to waste anybody's time. I want to make sure your time is utilized every minute to the value, so that you walk away and we have something we can grow from, not something that's just kind of like, I'm so sorry, I sat there for an hour, I could have went and graded papers, or for me, I could have went and cataloged books, or something like that.
Do you think that there's value in the PLC when it's completely teachers on their own, or should administrators be involved in the PLC process, do you think?
I think it depends. I think in smaller situations, I think teachers on their own are great. I think it just really depends in general on the administrators you're working with, the teachers you're working with, and how motivated people are. I mean, I've worked with teachers who are like, PLC, I don't care, I'm not interested. And they shut off until I actually start talking and share information. And I've been in ones where they're completely engaged and everybody's like, this is great, and they don't care who shows up. So I think it really depends on just the environment and kind of the place that you work. I think teacher-centered is great as long as you have somebody who can kind of facilitate or organize it to make it work a little bit more fluidly, or maybe administrators organize who's going to come and present in the PLC or some sort of things. But sometimes I think administrators, sometimes they have a lot of their own situations they have to deal with and a lot going on. So they may be a little disconnected. So they may not be aware of what's going on in that class, in that season, in that time, or whatever is going on with those students. So sometimes I feel like I don't really necessarily think, them handing down the topic is the best idea either. So I think you just really have to know your staff, and you have to know who you're working with, and kind of the strong suits of everybody, and utilize those. I think the best thing is to utilize the strong skills of all the people that you work with, and find, who are the leaders in a department or who are leaders in the PLC, and kind of work with that and those types of, skill sets.
I agree. And Carrie, you got twice the opinion. So I hope that answers your question on not only my thoughts, but you also get Kate's thoughts as well. Thank you, dear.
I am number 2.
Do you have time to stick around? Because I think there might be some other things that I have in my notes that you'd like to weigh in on.
Sure.
Awesome. What you don't see is her head fading backwards and her being like, oh my God, why is he asking me to do this? But we're going to push on a little bit. But before we get into the EdTech thought and some of the other things I have here on my notes, first, if you are like Carrie and you have a question or you want me to talk about a topic, and heck, now that we got the new studio, you never know when Kate's going to jump in. So if you have an EdTech question or something you want me to talk about, you can tweet using the hashtag House of EdTech, and you can also Vox me, Mr. Nessie, MRNESI, or you can call the House of EdTech feedback line at 732-903-4869. And I want to give a quick shout out to my awesome supporters. Peggy George, happy birthday. Your birthday was the day I'm recording this. So
oh yeah, I saw that on Twitter. Happy birthday, Peggy.
Yeah,
I saw lots of tweets and stuff and Facebook things on your Facebook.
Peggy is like the matriarch of education, I think.
That's awesome.
Retired principal.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday to you, Peggy. And also thank you to Mark Grindell and Dan Gallagher. They are my awesome supporters. And if you would like to become an awesome supporter of the podcast, go to chrisnessie.com/awesome to learn more. Now, my EdTech thought. So as I said at the top of the show, I have 2 EdTech thoughts, and Kate is now stuck here in the studio. So my first EdTech...
Oh, sorry.
And you know what the best part is? I'm recording this, so now I can use that as a sound effect anytime I want. The fun I'll have. Okay, so my first topic, the Twitter chat, but the Twitter chat in a school district. And my question is, why don't more districts conduct their own Twitter chats? So I can speak honestly. The district I work in, I never thought I'd see the day where it would have its own Twitter chat. And it's already had one this summer, and there's another one coming up as I record this.
That's great. That's a lot of progress.
This is a lot of progress.
That's awesome.
And your district also, through the power of Jill Dobrowanski, also jumped into the Twitter chat pool in the late winter, early in the spring.
Well, I think my district's a lot less afraid of Twitter. My superintendent's on Twitter, and it's a lot of fun to check for snow days and a variety of comments.
Well, in my district, the fear is now not there. With the new superintendent, new director of technology, new supervisor of technology.
I think, too, Twitter... So I joined Twitter back in 2008. I'm sure it came out probably a couple years before then, but it still wasn't well known. I know back in 2006 when I worked in the public library, I know we had talked about Twitter handles and a variety of things. We had a very forward-thinking young adult head librarian who was like, yeah, what about Twitter? I was one of the people who created the county library's MySpace page before Facebook was even allowed to have public email addresses. So for me, I joined Twitter in 2008. I was at a conference out in California, and I was like, oh, this is really cool. It could be used for a lot of things. And I think now, for me, I've been on Twitter for over 8 years. If you looked at my tweets, you won't think so, because I actually have it to scrub 3 months back, because I'm a little crazy about digital history. But
that might be a future EdTech recommendation. So
yeah, so so my stuff will only ever show 3 months back, which is fine for me. I'm happy about that. I've been on Twitter since 2008. And so 8 years later, I feel like it's more accepted. I feel like more people understand it. So I think a lot of districts, I feel like a lot of districts are on Twitter, or administrators are on Twitter, or people are supporting Twitter, or they just don't fight their staff who are involved on Twitter. But I think more and more people have come to realize the value in Twitter chats and communicating in different venues in different areas. Email can be very static. Websites are extremely static. Very few incorporate social and, easy updates and things like that, depending on the district you're in. So I think more people are starting to understand that they can reach their staff in a different location in an easier way. And, hey, it's easy to jump on. It's, like, my district was great. It's easy to jump on like once a month for an hour and chat with your fellow coworkers about topics that might interest you in your district. And then you feel like more a part of the community, and you don't feel so isolated in your position, in your location. And you get to know people who are across the district other than that, first in service day or mid-year full staff in service, where you really kind of just gravitate to the people that you know already. So it's a way to kind of like say, hey, wait, I know a few more people. And the next time I see them, I'm going to say, hey, I'm the librarian from the high school, or I'm the teacher at the elementary school. And, I saw your Twitter and I agreed with that. And, a little more conversation across buildings. Whereas email, you're not really going to get that. You're not going to get somebody emailing a random teacher and saying, hey, what are you guys doing?
And I think one of the other benefits is because the Twitter chat would be public, you have the opportunity that people outside your district may come across the hashtag, or if you're connected with other people.
Oh, yeah. Like, I'm definitely connected to a lot of educators. And then even when we did that blab, I think at the same time as my school's Twitter chat, it was kind of cool. There was people that jumped in that you had known that were other educators across the country answering questions and kind of giving some feedback. So I definitely think you can kind of get other people that'll jump in place of, and you're like, hey, wait a minute, that's a thought I never, considered before. Just I find it to be a really great sharing place for ideas, aside from, laughing at the political tweets going on right now.
Should districts who aren't conducting their own chats come up with a hashtag and at least try it?
Yeah. One thing I would suggest is at least look into the hashtag you want to use and see what it's being currently used for.
Very good point.
Previous district I worked for had tried to do kind of a Twitter thing, and I commended the principal for, I had taught a Twitter course, and then he got into it and started tweeting, but the hashtag he was using was for something slightly inappropriate, so there was a mix-in of a variety of things that were not content appropriate. So, kind of went to him and I said, hey, did you look up the handle you're using, the hashtag, and check it out? So he was like, ooh, wait a minute. And then, he ended up switching it to something a little different. So, and even if hashtags that you want to use, because even for me, like the district I'm in, like there's so many schools that have the same acronym of letters for the high school, or, it's something like that. Even when I was purchasing databases and getting passwords, and I was like, oh, I just want it to be simple and make it this. And they're like, yeah, that's already taken by like 35 other schools. Which number would you want on the end? Like kind of thing. So yeah, that's the only thing I would recommend is really looking at the hashtag that you want to use and see if anybody's using it currently.
And what is your district's hashtag?
It's wall in. So I find that to be a lot of fun.
It's like all in.
Yeah, it's all in, but with the W. So we're all in, which I like.
Mine is, and again, I never thought I'd report on this. This is, it's all in for the number 4, NB for New Brunswick. All in for NB.
That's cool.
So yeah, so the next Twitter chat in my district is coming up.
I think all in is is that a state thing right now?
All in is,
like a new thing. Yeah, all in. So.
All in the casinos? I don't know. Who knows?
I don't know. It just says like wall in.
The number 4 is catchy.
Yeah, I like it. That's different for a hashtag. Not a lot of places use numbers in the hashtag. Not that I, usually it's text.
And the other thing that I wanted to point out here is that Twitter chats, because they're public, also help to brand your district in a positive way. So talking about education and promoting the things that are happening in one's district, now it's out there and people will see it. So only good things can come from telling your district story and encouraging your district to potentially start its own Twitter chat.
The best thing that you can do now, everybody's on Facebook. Everybody's, I don't know about MySpace so much anymore, but Twitter, Instagram, there's really a lot of great places. And if school districts are there, it doesn't necessarily have to be your teachers, but your administrators. If people are saying like, hey, we've got this great concert going on, we've got this event coming up, or, and you work in a public service environment, I think it's the best way to reach your community. And I found since my previous county library started using Facebook, they actually, since we used MySpace, we got a lot of teens in back when that was big. Then they finally opened it up to Facebook and Twitter. They were very hesitant. But I thought it was, I'm like, that's the place to meet people. That's the place to get to them. And if you're not going to do it, somebody else is going to start that page or that handle or that account for you. So you might as well kind of take that over yourself and promote it in a positive way.
And actually, you sparked a great tip that I heard recently on another podcast. And I know I heard it on a podcast. I don't remember which one, so I apologize. Schools should consider starting a social media team, and the people who make up that team would be students to empower students to manage Twitter and Facebook and work with an administrator. And it kind of becomes something where, because that's a big field.
Yeah, that's a student leader in the community. I think that's great. I think that's a pretty cool idea. And, if you have students that are trustworthy and, can handle it, or maybe it goes through an administrator to get posted on the internet or, however else to keep them safe and secure. But yeah, I definitely think to have some sort of team in place or people who are like, hey, let's promote this as a group. Let's, get people interested, because a lot of your community is on Facebook and a lot of your community is on Twitter or Instagram or other places. So
go where the people are.
Yeah, I think if you meet people where they are, that's how you're going to make the most impact and get people to see the positives, not only the complaints and the negatives of what's happening in your district.
I think that's good for the first thought. The second thought I have, and I'm going to say it and then we're going to react to it. Pokemon Go? I say Pokemon stop. Here's my opinion. And again, I agree with somebody who blogged about this. Why does everything that comes out have to be incorporated into education? Can't this game, and I'm speaking as somebody who could care less about this game. I'm not on my iPad. I'm not playing Pokemon Go. I don't care about it. But I let the kids play it. Let people play it. Does it have to be brought into schools? And do we have to now see blog posts and people selling lesson plans and writing articles about how to bring it into schools? And I just don't see the need for that. Just some things, just let kids play the game. Just let them play. Your thoughts?
All I'm going to say is when I was in middle school and high school, there was not one lesson that incorporated Mario Kart. Take that as you will. So
there were no Mario Kart driver's ed lessons?
No, we didn't even have the virtual simulator. They have really cool virtual simulators and everything now. Like, that'd be great. Like, I probably could have parallel parked so much better had I had, like, a simulator.
I could have learned how to throw banana peels out the window better.
I know. Or the turtle shells. Those poor turtles. Yeah, the only thing I can say, I mean, I haven't played Pokemon Go. I wasn't a Pokemon person back in the 90s either.
Me either.
I think it's great that things are making a comeback. Definitely when Mario Kart comes to like the iPod, like I'm on it. And I know there's a Nintendo box coming for HD TVs and whatnot.
I'm excited to get
HDMI,
the tiny Nintendo.
Whatever. Yeah. So, I mean, we still have a Super Nintendo in the attic. And,
Hold on.
And we have hooked it up, but our 4-year-old plays with it a little too much.
He can't handle the controller.
Yeah, we don't want him to break the controllers. So we're going to wait until he's a little older. But
I just saw this too, is they got the little Nintendo coming out this holiday season. Sega also announced that they're going to come out with a tiny
Sonic
with a replica like Genesis looking thing with like 80 games built into it.
They're totally playing on our generations.
And they hooked me. I got the hook on off.
Yeah, I mean, like if you think about it, like the Care Bears making a comeback, Cabbage Patch Kids, like that was all stuff we grew up with. They're like, this generation's going to buy that stuff for their kids. So anyway, yeah, the only thing I can say with Pokemon Go is I saw an article. Who knows if it's true or not, but pretty reputable source about people kind of finding people in remote places playing Pokemon Go in the evening or whatnot, because it logs your GPS, I guess. I haven't played it.
We went down to the beach the last week.
Oh my God. Everybody was sitting on their cell phones. It was kind of scary. It was like a really strange...
The beach was empty and everybody was sitting...
You're like the House of EdTech, and it made me want to go back to like the 1950s, like no technology, like ring the phone and let it dial. Like, I mean, kids couldn't wait for that like old rotary phone to like go back each number, especially if you had a 9. Oh my God, they were terrible. Yeah. So my only thing is, if you are playing it, just be safe. It has a GPS. It logs where you're at. We both don't have smartphones, which if you go back to the podcast about finance, you'll probably hear something about why we don't. So I really can't play Pokemon Go because I'm not on Wi-Fi everywhere. So it's not my thing. And then I saw somebody, a relative of mine actually said that there was people like dropping Pokemon in her aunt's yard, and people were showing up to her aunt's yard, and like a variety of weird digital things happening. And the woman was very upset. So it was kind of like, I was like, oh my God, this is like extending a little too close to home.
And
but a lot of people seem to have fun with it. I mean, I never played Pokemon, so it wasn't like a thing for me. But when I heard of it, I was like, "Oh, Kirby!" Like I don't even know if that has anything to do with it.
Kirby's not a Pokemon, dear.
I was like, "Ooh, the little marshmallow guy."
Kirby will be on the Nintendo that's coming out again.
Okay, there you go, and Donkey Kong. So I'm not really into gaming. That's not my strong suit.
So thumbs up for Mini Nintendo, thumbs down on Pokemon Go in education.
Yeah, I don't know if it has a full place. I mean, I know they're like...
Well, clearly if people are writing about it, they think there's a place. I'm just saying I don't think so.
You know what? There's courses that deal with apps and software and technology, and you know, Pokemon Go obviously has a place in the world, but does it have a place in English class? I'm not sure. Math, you know, I don't know if it has a place in like some of the core content areas. I could be wrong because I've not played the game, so I'm not sure, but I think, you know, it has a place in some places, but I don't know if every single trend you need to kind of jump on every single time.
My final thought on this is I don't think that Pokemon Go should be the next uptick trend in education. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
I'll have to check with my students in the fall if there's any Pokemon around the library, I guess.
You should get a Pikachu mask. Then there could be Pokemon.
Oh, Pikachu, that's it. See, I knew one of them.
That's the EdTech thought for this episode. And Kate may or may not be back after the transition music. If she's not back, she is at Kate Nessie on Twitter. And you can follow all her musings and dealings at katenessie.com and also frugalmomster.com. I'll thank you for a few minutes, sweetie, if you decide not to be back.
It's also blog.katenessie.com. That's where I write most of my stuff.
Sorry.
It's okay.
I read it.
I realize you don't go to my website.
I do go to your website. But you can go to katenessie.com and click blog.
There you go.
Well, this has been a lot of fun, so let's continue to have some fun, and now let's go through our 2 EdTech recommendations for this episode. Recommendation number 1 is called Lesson Plan Tool for Docs. This is a great Google Docs add-on that allows you to search for K-12 teaching resources to add to your Google Doc. The Google Doc Lesson Plan tool gives you access to all the resources of opened.com and makes it simple to integrate them into your document. You can search for videos, games, assessments, and more. You will also see resources aligned to standards and grade levels, along with an effectiveness score to help you choose the right resource. With Lesson Plan Tool for Docs enabled, you can search for these standards-aligned lesson plan resources within your Google Doc document. To perform a search, simply open the add-on, then select a standard from the drop-down menu that appears on the right-hand side of your document, and you can preview any of the resources that appear by simply clicking on them. This seems pretty cool. I just found it. And, of course, there will be a link to it in the show notes, again at chrisnessie.com/66. And our second EdTech recommendation for this episode is called Vizia, V-I-Z-I-A, and this allows you to create interactive video quizzes. Vizia is a free tool for creating video-based quizzes. On Vizia, you import a video from YouTube or Wistia, and then you can add questions along the timeline of the video. You can ask multiple choice questions, as well as short answer or open response questions. Adding a poll question into the video is also possible with Vizia. All of the responses to your questions are collected on a spreadsheet that you can easily download and open in Google Sheets. You can sign up with your Google account, or, of course, with your name and your email. And this can be found at vizia.co. That's my EdTech recommendations. And now it's time for the latest House of EdTech VIP. Congratulations to, drumroll, I don't have the effect loaded, but congratulations to Cassie Reeder. Cassie is a 3rd grade teacher from Richardson, Texas, and she has her master's in elementary education with a specialization in educational technology. Cassie Reeder's passion is working with technology to engage and expand student experiences by creating connections between classroom content and the real world. Cassie has 5 years of teaching experience at the elementary level in both 3rd and 4th grades. And aside from working to engage and inspire her students through the integration of technology into her daily curriculum, Cassie has spent time during her teaching career training and teaching other teachers, which allowed her to find her true passion. She also volunteers in her district as a Google Guide, as well as presenting at various conferences and ed camps around Texas. She is also an instructional consultant with Promethean, where she has the opportunity to share those passions and further develop those skills within a school district as she trains teachers how to use and integrate Promethean products into their daily routines. And aside from her day job, Cassie is also one of the organizers of EdCamp Global, where she strives to seek out inspiring educators to facilitate in their events throughout the year. Connect with Cassie Reeder. She is, of course, on Twitter, and her username is Reeder_Cassie, and that's REEDER_Cassie, CASSIE. Congratulations, Cassie. You are the House of Ed Tech VIP. And that's going to do it for this episode of the House of Ed Tech. Thank you again to summerpd.com for supporting this episode. And remember, if you go to summerpd.com, use the promo code House of Ed Tech, and you can save $10 on their great bundle of PD courses.
That's really awesome.
It's a good deal. and Kate's back. Keep the conversation going. Visit my website, chrisnessy.com, and you can find all the show notes and links for this episode at chrisnessy.com/66. And I would love to connect with you and hear your thoughts on the information and resources shared in this and every episode. On the website, click Share Feedback, and that's going to give you my email and all the ways that you can connect with me. The fastest way is Twitter. I'm Mr. Nessy, MRNESI, and just use the hashtag House of Ed Tech. Now, if you enjoyed the House of Ed Tech, and I enjoy it, Kate, do you enjoy the House of Ed Tech?
I do.
Do us a favor. Tell somebody else about the podcast. Word of mouth is the best way to share a great podcast that you love, this and anyone that you listen to. Number 2, rate and review the podcast on iTunes. Your rating and honest review is going to help keep the House of Ed Tech front and center for other teachers to discover and enjoy. And you can also show your support through patreon.com. Just go to chrisnessy.com/awesome, and you can learn how to become an awesome supporter of the podcast. On the next episode, House of Ed Tech number 67, I'm going to welcome Derek Larson as a co-host, finally, and we're going to be releasing that episode and conversation on August 14th, 2016. Any parting words, dear?
Go see the movie Bad Moms. It was great.
You did like the movie.
I thought it was great. I thought it was, a lot of people might have watched it and thought that there was very little, support for women and what they, just moms in general. Maybe not a feminist view, but actually the storyline was really great and it had a really great viewpoint. Actually in support of moms and getting rid of perfection and just being yourself for your kids. So I went to see it actually this morning at 10 a.m. So with another fellow mom of myself, and I thought it was great.
Awesome. Thank you for popping into the House of Ed Tech, and I think I'll see you later. And as for you who's listening, until next time, thank you for joining me and Kate, and remember, using technology isn't difficult. Just give it a try. The House of Ed Tech is a proud member of the Education Podcast Network. The Education Podcast Network. Podcasts for educators, podcasts by educators. For more, go to edupodcastnetwork.com.